As I'm writing this script, I just watched the Suicide Squad last night, and I know in these videos I try to keep professional and tend not to use any vulgar language, but it was fucking amazing. Holy shit, I did not expect it to be that good. No doubt one of the best fucking superhero films I have watched to date. Holy shit! Yeah, it was a really great film filled with great action, dialogue, characters, and storytelling. But it's crazy to think that roughly 5 years ago we had another Suicide Squad film that was meant to be the DCEU's version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Yet it failed with critics and fans. Why? Why did it fail? I think if you watched both films, you can understand the big contrast between the two of them. But I feel it's important to narrow the reasons down to show why the Suicide Squad redeems itself from its 2016 counterpart. I think many people know by now the relationship between DC and WB. In the early years of the DCEU, DC and Warner Bros. Were so desperate to catch up to Marvel that they rushed a set of films to try to compete with the MCU at the time. Of course, it didn't work because, well, it was rushed. One of those films that came out during that time was, you guessed it, Suicide Squad. And many people were excited for the film to come out. The expectations were for it to be DC's response to the MCU's Guardians of the Galaxy. But come August 1st, 2016, that wasn't the case. The movie was not received well by critics and fans and ultimately deemed a failure. I think a lot of the failure came from WB interfering with the film and screwing up the director's vision, which was not the first or last time this would happen between the studio and its directors. Zack Snyder had both his Batman v Superman and Justice League films dissected by WB to turn it into their vision and not his. Luckily, in 2021, HBO Max gave Snyder the freedom he wanted to make the film he so desired to show his audience. Luckily, WB learned from their lessons and decided to give directors more creative freedom to make their films, and thus films like Shazam, Joker, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and now The Suicide Squad are all a result of WB setting no boundaries for what directors can and can't do. I mean, clearly, when you watch The Suicide Squad, you can see how much fun James Gunn had directing this film. The humor, action, blood, and gore was all of his ideas because he had the freedom to choose. I've mentioned this a few times before. Although Marvel on a front is doing better than DC, I feel that their films are getting formulaic and overdone because of a lot of studio interference. Yes, although the Russo brothers have had their freedom with the Captain America films and Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, I feel going forward that they should follow WB's policy when it comes to working with directors. Let them do what they want. Make an R-rated film for fuck's sakes. Luckily, we are getting the first R-rated MCU film with Doctor Strange Madness in the Multiverse, which will be directed by Sam Raimi. So maybe things will change. They've already been changing with the shows they have on Disney+.
Ladies and gentlemen, James Gunn.
That's right. James motherfucking Gunn is the reason why this movie is a success. Anytime people talk to me about the MCU and ask me which films are actually the best ones, the Guardians of the Galaxy will always be on that list. It's incredible how James Gunn took a bunch of B and C-list superheroes that no one even heard of and turned them into household names. Can anyone tell me whether they knew who Rocket Raccoon or Groot were before Guardians came out? I know I didn't. And not only did he do it for Guardians, he did it again for the Suicide Squad. I didn't even know who Ratcatcher or Polka Dot Man were. And if you gave them to other directors, they would just be silly. But James Gunn made me love them. These characters I never knew existed are characters I've grown to love, especially Ratcatcher 2. Many people, including myself, know she is the heart of the film. She doesn't even feel like a villain, yet here she is among these terrible list of people that we love a lot. Honestly, in the first 10 minutes, I was surprised when almost half the cast was killed off. It made me think that no one was untouchable, and the only person I felt was safe throughout the entire movie was Harley Quinn, since Margot Robbie is the face of the DCEU. Anyways, continuing with my point. I felt that anyone could die at any moment. I felt my heart beating when I saw King Shark get bit from those little fishes and fall from a building. I think Gunn doing that not only makes him a madman, but almost a genius. Since half the cast is a list of B and C list characters, he can do whatever he wants with them since they're not considered the A tier. And he wouldn't suffer nearly as much consequences and criticism from fans of the comics. Reality is whatever he wants it to be. Honestly, the unpredictability in the Suicide Squad is one of the standout parts of the film.
Nathan Fillion's Civilian Pavilion. Nathan Fillion's Civilian Pavilion.
Nathan Fillion Civilian Pavilion?
Nathan Fillion Civilian Pavilion.
Nathan Fillion Civilian Pavilion.
Nathan Fillion.
The Nathan Fillion Civilian Pavilion.
Nathan Fillion.
Nathan Fillion. That's it. That's the whole paragraph. Nathan Fillion Civilian Pavilion is what makes the film 69 times better than its 2016 counterpart, despite the fact he only got roughly 5 minutes of screen time. RIP TDK. I think a major criticism that Suicide Squad got was the fact that there was no heart. We didn't care for these characters. We got introduced to them, but do we care for them? No. I mean, you can say the bar scene is a way for the pacing to slow down so we can get to know the characters, but that scene alone is not enough for us to care. One thing I can appreciate about this Suicide Squad is the fact that many parts of the film have slow pacing in order for us to understand the characters. Honestly, one of my favorite scenes of the film is the bar scene. Now, compared to the 2016's adaptation, this one is done much better. It's done better because for 4 minutes, it doesn't feel like characters from a comic book interacting with one another. It just feels like a group of individuals having a good time while drinking and dancing. I mean, look at Peacemaker there. He's enjoying himself. Not so much for King Shark, however. While I'm on the topic of Peacemaker, I want to mention the humor in the film. Yes, although it is hilarious and is written to perfection by Gunn, I think the humor in the film isn't just meant to be funny, it's meant for us to feel a closer connection towards these characters and understand them more. Sure, the scenes of Polka Dot Man seeing his mother everywhere and King Shark trying to eat Ratcatcher 2 were funny scenes, when in actuality they're meant to showcase the character's flaws, trauma, and emptiness. Polka Dot Man seeing his mother everywhere is a reminder of the person who turned them into this metahuman, who has to empty his polka dots that are all over his body or they'll eat him alive. It is truly frightening when you think about it that way. And King Shark trying to eat Ratcatcher 2 because he's hungry is funny, but when we learn that he doesn't consider her a friend that he shouldn't be eating because he doesn't have any friends to call his own. I also want to mention Bloodsport's fear of rats. It is played for laughs when it first happened, but when we learn the reason for his fear, why he despises rats, it makes us feel sorry for him. But then we also learn that this was the first time he shared this story with anyone, and it was shared with Ratcatcher 2, who happens to remind Bloodsport of his daughter. Sharing that story with her is what makes him trust her, trust the team, and trust himself to be a leader. I also really love the line that Ratcatcher's father said about rats.
Why rats, Papa?
Rats are the lowliest and most despised of all creatures, my love. If they have purpose, so do we all.
Those words definitely hit my heart a lot because it's a really deep saying that I never really thought about in my life. The humor in the Suicide Squad isn't just meant for the viewers to laugh, but it's meant to showcase other character traits that are more sincere and filled with sorrow. I'm glad Gunn did this because he wasn't just writing humor for humor's sake. He was writing it to make us more intrigued in these characters that we don't know much about, which is a skill that can only be done by the greats. When the announcement of James Gunn directing a sequel/reboot of the Suicide Squad was first announced, I knew it would be far better than the original, And you can call full bullshit on that statement, but it's true. I'm glad in the modern era of superhero films, aka post-Infinity Saga era, we're able to get more and more fresh comic book adaptation films from directors who give a damn. WB is doing a great job with letting directors do what the fuck they want to do, and directors are doing a good job on taking risk and not giving a damn about what the general public or media have to say about it. I'm seeing this more in some of Marvel's shows, however they still have a ways to go when it comes to freshening their films to be new and inventive. With DC and Warner Bros. However, Shazam, Joker, The Suicide Squad, and now The Batman? I can't wait to see what these directors have to show with the creative freedom they now have to be able to do whatever the fuck they want and make the superhero genre exciting again.